Welcome to RealmIQ Sessions, featuring conversations on AI with AI founders, AI leaders, and experts from around the globe, covering the intersection of media, technology, Hollywood, and marketing. Please give us a follow or subscribe. This is our host, Curt Doty.
Welcome, everybody. Let's get into it. This is season 3, and I am excited to introduce today's guest, Lisa Trublet de Nermont. I hope I said that right. My French is a little weak, but she is a film tech founder and has contributed to over 500 million in marketing source pipeline for global tech brands. Most recently, leading global demand generation at Vimeo, one of my favorite platforms. She is a creative executive, strategist, and builder at the intersection of legacy media and emerging technology. Quite the background. She is here today to also talk about her new AI platform, Sinima, the first AI operating system, or OS, for filmmakers and creators. And I would add, trying to do it the right way. Lisa, welcome. How are you doing today?
Thank you. That was quite an intro. I feel so undeserving.
Well, it's all you. So tell me a little bit about your journey from being that tech executive with one of our favorite brands and platforms we use every day, and then becoming really an entrepreneur and launching your own platform in AI. How did that come about? And tell me about your journey.
Yeah, I think, it's been 20 years in the making. 20 years ago, gosh, I was just graduating and figuring out my life. And I think since then, my career has been 50% parts filmmaking within the post-production space and the marketing side of things. And then on the other side of that, I got quite deeply involved in technology and B2B SaaS, for example. Quite interestingly, because one part of that is the filmmaking side of things is a little bit archaic in terms of their technology stacks, because they're using very many legacy systems, but doing the most astounding creative work. And then on the tech side, the technology is so advanced, but the creativity I felt was lacking. And so I made my way through to Vimeo via a friend, a colleague, who ultimately referred me for a role, which I was really grateful for. But I was impacted by a round of layoffs that happened in January. And at that point, I realized, I think I've got something. I've been sitting on this idea for a while, especially since the AI revolution. And I was like, there's got to be a way for people to do this better and more ethically. And so that Sinima was born at 3:00 in the morning when I couldn't sleep one night. And I was just like, we've got to build this. So I immediately started with the prototype. The prototype, since its inception, has evolved quite substantially since, the first rendition of it. But I'm really proud of it, and I'm proud of where we're going with it. I think we are going to be leaders in the space of ethical AI around IP creation for studios, for major conglomerates, but also the individual creator, somebody who wants to know that if they're creating something, it's not going to get stolen or reused or repurposed down the line. And if it does, there's actionable steps to take to secure their IP. And so that's where we're at.
Cool. So when you talk about ethics, the major concern has been around IP and whether you should put your IP into, platforms like Runway, Sora, VO3, and do you start to lose your rights and ownership of said material? And so how are you different, or how are you protecting IP?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are really we're really the only cinematic intelligence company that's at the intersection of Web3 and OpenAI and Gen AI. So how we differentiate is we're not building another tool. We're building an entire operating system that has the creator first economy, and then it's also got the filmmaker first economy, and ensuring that the IP is consistently protected from the moment that it's created. So there's two sides to what we're building. One is you can tinker around with the open source methodology, which is your OpenAIs, your Soras. You can integrate what you've already built. But if you want to build off of that and actually train your own IP, you can do that in Sinima in our vault. And so we're allowing, for the first time ever, I would say one of the first cinematic intelligence companies, to allow the user to be able to model their own per IP on their own language model. So we're basically just trying to democratize the opportunity to train your models? Because I think everybody is so reliant on the Soras and the Runways and the OpenAIs of the world. And it's very overwhelming for somebody coming from the film industry who comes from a very traditional way of filmmaking. So I'm just excited to bring this to the community and make sure that when they are thinking about creating something new, it might feel really great seeing your imagery and your ideas come to life, but you really do lose all control once you're building it in those platforms.
Yeah.
What we're going to be able to do for our users and our creators and filmmakers is anything that they build and model off of in Sinima is 100% theirs. We don't even have access to it. It's kind of like a bank. Like we don't have access to see what they've been building or anything like that. So it's really protected.
Right. So it's firewalled, and you don't train on other people's IP, and they own whatever they put in, right?
100%.
And so what's crazy is, what's happening with Disney and Universal, my former employer, are suing Midjourney.
Just saw that.
And so there's speculation about, not just the monetary compensation, but what does that mean for the future of a platform? Like maybe they go down, right? Which can happen. Tech titans fall, or somehow studios create what you're building so that a filmmaker comes in and uses, the Walt Disney AI filmmaker machine, and it's a walled garden in itself. And so the concern is that what seemed like what was a democratizing media for creatives and aspiring filmmakers or aspiring AI filmmakers now will suddenly be cordoned off and controlled by, once again, big studios, not necessarily big tech, but big studios. Do you see that as a possible future, or?
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you there. I'm just really energized about this topic. I think people have got shiny object syndrome right now. And I think what we're seeing in the filmmaking generative AI space around, like I said, all, Runway, Midjourney, Sora, they're moving so fast that I don't know that they've even thought about the intellectual property damage and loss thereof a year or two from now. It's only a matter of time before companies like myself and any other tech stack will come along and completely dominate that industry. The thing is with Sinima is we really are reaching and trying to target these major studios who are looking for that IP protection component. I would go as far as saying we probably have close to military grade IP protection that we're implementing through our proprietary tech stack. So it's going to, for example, the studios will have access and control over their IP, which I think is really, really important. But will they also get real-time alerts when their IP is being misused right away, as opposed to finding out about it, further down the line, which is also a really great tactic that we do. The other component is we do a watermark stamping, so they'll always be able to track and trace where they're going with their IP. How that impacts the individual user, because I think it's all very well to talk about studios, and I'm like staying on top of this Disney Midjourney situation, so we'll get into that in just a second. But I think more importantly, the individual creators, the visual effects artists, the cinematic artists, the people who have been building this industry for hundreds of years are now at a loss, and they're reeling in trying to figure out how are they going to live through this next chapter. And I think it's really more of an evolution than it is a complete takeaway from what they know and what they do. And so with Sinima, they're going to be able to come in and essentially train everything that they've learned over the years, whether it's through a Google document or it's, some sort of image or creativity or editing style or a run chase sequence or a LUT pack or something like that. They can upload it, model it in their own secure platform, decide if they want to distribute it or not, or they can sell it within the Sinima marketplace.
Okay.
So their IP is consistently tracked and watermarked from the moment they plug it into Sinima. And then once they've sent it off into distribution, they're going to get real-time alerts when any moment that their IP is being misused. So no one is doing that at the moment. I'm kind of nervous to give away a little secret, but
first heard of it. So the marketplace, it's brilliant. And I think that you talk about the creator economy and creators. It's not just filmmakers.
Yeah.
The creator economy has always been searching for the holy grail of how they own their content and how to monetize their content. And so I think it's fascinating what you just said, because the displacement of visual effects workers, of which there's thousands all over the world, they will quickly be out of work because the studios will embrace AI production, putting them out of work. And so what you're saying is leverage their experience, build IP based on their technical prowess with AI models within Sinima, and then sell those as packages to studios who could partake of your system as the system to make films for the
100%.
studios.
Yeah. So ultimately, where I'd like to see Sinima 5 years from now is to be the go-to for primary IP ownership. And I'm not going to say we're going to take away from studios because they've got their own thing that they're building and creating. And I think it's really wonderful. But I think it's about time that the creators and filmmakers take ownership of what they've been building for the last couple of years, right? I feel like so much is given and lost and taken through the studio system. Again, huge respect for studios. They've got a big thing going and it's great. But I think we're at this crux right now that if we don't support our filmmakers and our visual effects artists and everybody that lost their jobs, millions and millions of people, we have lost such an important part of history. And I think I'm trying so desperately to preserve that and treat the creativity that they've created over the last couple of years almost as artifacts. So we're talking like Martin Scorsese can use Sinima to upload all of his own IP that he hasn't sold off, model it, train it, and then sell his own pack or whatever he wants to do, tone, style, texture, whatever it is, in the marketplace for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Or you can get your individual creator, filmmaker, editor, even a visual effects artist or a set designer can come in and sell any sort of replicated model of what they're willing to distribute. And they have very, very crystal clear usage rights. And if those usage rights are violated, they get sent an instant cease and desist. So we really are thinking creator, filmmaker first. And I don't think a lot of people are doing that.
No one's doing it. And, it's this technology race. And what I love about what you're doing is that you've sat back for a little while and watched this debacle happen.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And you, as what I call an alt tech company, are sitting there observing, don't need to be first to market, but I'm learning from all the mistakes, both legal, creatively, copyright, everything that everyone else is making, big tech wise, and coming up with something different. And I think that's so smart and incredible. And it's very important. I've been in product development for 10 years and I know that sometimes it doesn't pay to be first to market.
Yeah.
Learn from other people's mistakes, save your money, sit on your money, and spend it wisely developing models that learn from the failures of those who went first.
Oh my gosh. So well said. I think if I had started this any sooner, it would have crumbled. It would have been replicated. What I'm really proud of is that we're building something that's not easy to replicate because there's a lot that I can't mention on this call, but behind the scenes, like I said, we're at the intersection of Web3, blockchain, and generative AI, and also traditional tech stacks, like bringing them all into one house to operate seamlessly together. When Sinima initially started, it was this concept of frictionless filmmaking, because what I noticed instantly was any creator, if I look at LinkedIn or Instagram, you ask them what their tech stack was to create a 30-second piece of film or sort of any sort of motion sequence. It was ChatGPT for the prompts, and then it was Midjourney for the conceptualization, and then it was Runway for the actual visualization. And there were so many different other elements to it. I'm like, so people are really averaging on anything between 5 to about 10 different tech stacks just to produce the 30-seconder. How do we make that more frictionless? Bring it all into one platform. And so that's what Sinima is also going to be able to do. But not only that, you can also merge in with your traditional tech stack. So there's a lot of people playing in this field right now that doesn't differentiate us a whole ton. But I think really the core of what we do is the ability to obviously bring all that in-house. It's our marketplace. It's our proprietary technology around IP security. And it's also just the ability to train on your own LLMs. And so we're trying to democratize the space for people who are coming into it fresh and new and very overwhelmed by it. So also just re-employ a huge portion of the economy. And I also think that the economy is going to take such a hit. I know people are saying, AI is obviously great. It is. But I think that if we can re-employ our cinematic artists, I think that we can add a great bump to the economy as well in a positive direction. So that's what I'm really proud of.
That's great. So it seems like one aspect is, and this has always been an elusive goal, is being an integrator, right? Because you see this multimodal world of varying tech stacks.
Mm-hmm.
And the challenge is how to integrate them without necessarily trying to reinvent what Midjourney's doing or
we don't need
Runway or Sora. And so is it possible? Is this part of your roadmap, is that you license some of those platforms to be integrated into your platform?
Yeah. So the plan is to have clients and customers integrate their own tech stack, right? So if they've already got an account with ChatGPT, Sora, Runway, whatever it is, just integrate your accounts. It's as simple as that. If they are going to integrate for the first time and open up an account within those platforms through Sinima, we take a rev share from that. I think we're constantly thinking about the most seamless way to create film. And I would go as far as to say 5 years from now, possibly sooner, I want to be the first person to have built Sinima, obviously, to have created the first feature film using purely AI. And right now we're not there. We've got a couple of tweaks and tinkering to do. And I think it can take us a while to build, really robust tech stack to get there. Obviously, token usage is a huge thing. Something else I should mention around Sinima is that it really is the first operating system of its kind where you can understand your token usage from a monetization perspective. So in traditional filmmaking, you hire freelancers, editors, whatever it is, right? So they send you an invoice, you pay them, it's done. Sinima now also has an entirely different economy behind the scenes around token usage, which I don't think a lot of people are thinking about. Think about how inefficient some people are using their tokens right now. What if you hire an editor who's using 40 million tokens to create, a 30-second piece? That's really bad.
Yeah, right.
And then you can monitor another editor who is using 10,000 tokens to create a 30-second piece. That's fantastic. So now you know which editor to work with. There's a whole component to it that we're really excited to build out around the efficiency of token usage paired with the ability to upload real cash to buy more tokens within these platforms. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And, there's something that is often forgotten is how collaborative the film industry is, the process of filmmaking.
Yep.
It has always been collaborative. And for this kind of first 2 years of experimenting with AI video, right? Whether they're films or not is debatable, but
Yes.
AI and video has a distinction. It's been a lot of solo operators going multimodal and just doing what they can and making crazy ass shit that, is it a film? Is there a narrative? Is there a hero's journey? Are there
shooting from the
are there character arcs? It's like all those things of film making, film writing aren't there. And that's done through collaboration with a lot of different people, certain visual effects, at the end of any movie, there's 100 visual effects companies and 100 employees under each one of those visual effects companies, all working on one film. So what's cool about what you're talking about in building is that you're enabling collaboration. You're bringing collaboration back to what has been a lot of solo efforts around AI filmmaking, when in fact, to really make a great film.
Yeah.
And whatever that first film is that comes out that's done completely in AI, it's going to go under a lot of scrutiny.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, 100%. That's
and so what you're bringing back is it's a collaborative effort, and no one can be the one expert that brings it all together solo, but it requires the expertise of all these people who have been making films for years, who have found themselves rebirthed in your marketplace and can contribute to what is a new medium.
Yeah, totally. And in one platform, right? There's no need for us to live and breathe in 20 different universes. I think we're in due time now where we all need to be operating from the same system. I want to touch on that Disney Midjourney crisis.
Okay.
I think they filed on like the 11th of June or something. And it's interesting. I think it's also around 150,000 per infringement, right?
Yeah.
And it just got me thinking, I even think that that's too low because, the infringement
Well,
is...
if you quantify that by the millions of people who have used it erroneously.
Is that how they're doing it?
Yeah. So imagine, I mean, I sit back and critique people thinking they can just make a Star Wars digital comic book because they are using AI. And I was like, okay, but did you get the rights to do that from Disney?
Yep.
Or Lucasfilm? It's like,
yeah.
What are you talking about? It's like, yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah. I remember like a year ago, I was tinkering around with some image generation tools and I could very easily, replicate Ozzy Osbourne and, Dave Grohl and Taylor Swift. And I was like, why am I allowed to do this? This does not feel ethical. And that was also when the wheels started turning. I'm like, I would be so pissed if I had spent decades building this elaborate IP vault for myself and suddenly someone can just go and replicate me without my permission. And that's really the heart of cinema. It's like, yes, people are all... A question came up the other day in an investor call around, people are going to do this anyway. Why do we care? I'm like, we care because we care. And people will come to our platform for the most secure IP. End of story. There's always going to be somebody who's trying to do something bad out there. But if we can be the people in the industry who genuinely care and are doing the right thing for the studios as well as for the individual creators, I think we've got something quite special.
Yeah, let's have the good guys win for once, for the good girls, all right?
Yeah, exactly.
And now a word from our sponsors. Visla is a great AI tool. I use it every day. It is the faster, easier, and better way to record your screens and make content. Get a discount by entering Curt15. Go to visla.us or scan the QR code. Speechify is a really cool app. It is an AI voice generator. It does AI voice dubbing and AI voice cloning. Go to speechify.com or scan the QR code. Strikingly is the most loved website and e-commerce builder by entrepreneurs. It is easy to use and they have launched 12 plus million websites and online stores and counting. Go to strikingly.com or scan the QR code. And we're back.
No, it's so interesting. And also just the amount of money that is being lost to video piracy I think it's something around 75 billion a year. It's just so much. It's unimaginable how much is happening. And this is, this has been happening for years and years and years, but AI is just propelling it to a new level now.
Right. And as investors or tech companies are investing into AI, billions and billions of dollars, it seems like, can't you just dedicate hundreds of millions to licensing deals with IP owners so that you can do things the right way?
Yeah.
Just carve it out. And just say, okay, 10% goes to licensing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're an investor, you can make those demands of what is being done with your money.
Yeah, it's so true. I think, yes, I think that is the direction that investors and VCs and angel investors, if they were really thinking smartly about the next 10 years, that's where they should be putting their money. Something else I was thinking about from the A-list talent, right? People like the Nicole Kidmans of the world, Reese Witherspoon, Viola Davis. I actually predict and probably foresee a world where A-list talent and pretty much any creator can own their entire supply chain. I would probably go as far as to say, I don't know if there's a real need for the traditional talent agent and manager system as we know it right now. Potentially, IP talent management could be a thing, right? I also think they probably, if they don't want to handle the legalities and the paperwork, sure, they'll probably get an agent to manage the IP component. But this is also something that I'm thinking about consistently with Sinima. How does Sinima operate as the IP talent management component? So if Nicole Kidman comes and says, I've recorded these songs with Keith, her husband, completely ours. How do we build off of this? They can come to Sinima, upload their music, safely secured in Sinima, always have 100% right ownership. We don't own anything. They can go and remodel, rebuild off of that, build out movies, build out shorts, reels, anything, a whole new song that they wanted to do, and distribute it on their own within Sinima as well. Where's the agent? Where's the studio? They don't need it. So there is a component where I think that we are able to allow A-list talent to also free themselves a little bit from the clutches and the claws of talent management and talent ownership, in a sense. I think that's quite revolutionary. I don't know that that's going to be an all-encompassing solution for everyone. I think that the more tech-savvy A-list talents would be, quite interested in that. But I think people who enjoy the traditional talent management and agency partnership, I think they'll probably stay where they're at.
Yeah. I mean, you just have to look to Taylor Swift and Beyonce to understand that they get it. They get about, creating their own worlds, right? And monetizing it their own way. And, but, then how do you democratize that model?
Yeah.
To not only A-list talent in Hollywood, but to everyone, up and down the supply chain of creativity.
Yeah.
Right. Authors, singers, writers,
gaming, the gaming industry.
Gaming. It's like, will the big video game publishers die off, and then people who have been building the games say, I'm my own studio and I can do whatever and live and monetize within cinema.
Yeah. I think that that's the future. And I think big studios, big production companies who own the rights to a lot of these things are going to have to start thinking a little bit more laterally and out the box if they want to stay relevant. You mentioned as well, I brought it up earlier around the owning. I feel like artists will essentially own their entire supply chain. I really do see that as the future. And I think that Sinima would be the perfect place for them to start. This is where the most important thing to understand about Sinima is it's truly from ideation all the way through to distribution and monetization. It's not just a tool. It's not just one component of the supply chain. It's everything. And so when I'm currently raising seed for Sinima, and I think some of the questions I get around, this is too big. This is a lot. And I'm like, I get it. I've worked in tech for a very long time. I know what is a big endeavor and I know what is a tool. We are building something massive to shape the next generation of filmmaking. It is big and we need investors on board who are excited about the big and not scared, terrified of it. So I'm very happy to say that we are moving progressively in a great direction with some of our investors. I'm also looking to partner with A-list talent as well, people who are really interested, obviously, and care about the cinematic industry and want to reemploy a lot of their friends, their communities, people who have helped them build films, but also who have a need and an interest in technology and want to, stay ahead and stay current. So we're in the process of chatting with a bunch of talent agents and just seeing where we can land on that.
That's great. What you're presenting is a very different alternative and a different type of threat to the old Hollywood system. Having gone through the union battles and strikes, 2 years ago when all this was beginning with generative AI, I don't think anyone imagined a revolutionary model that isn't taking away their likeness, but it's actually empowering them in a way that is counter to the whole studio system and the unions, both on the, the guild side, as well as the Teamsters and electricians and, all those people.
All of them.
So that's refreshing. That's completely refreshing. And I think something that was not even conceived 2 years ago. And I have always believed that it's going to be creative people who can think out of the box, who will solve these critical problems, not just from creatively expressing yourself with these amazing tools, but it's challenging existing business models inventing new business models, thinking out of the box to imagine a different world and a different way of doing things than 120 years of Hollywood history.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned something about the guilds and, the unions. Something that we really will need to do as an organization is get really close to these guilds and unions and build a really healthy partnership with them and trust, because we are really looking out for their best interest as well. We're also building a cinema guild. So this is true excellence in AI innovation and, mythology and builds, and people who are really architecturing in this space in a very ethical way, not focusing on speed, but rather focusing on quality and ethicalities. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm busy building up the board for that. We'll eventually have a voting panel. We'll also have a ceremony where we'll, celebrate the art and cinematic intelligence through AI. One thing that's also just really cool about cinema is that you really are able to bring in your legacy tool stack, like I mentioned earlier, and as well as overlay that with your AI technology. And you can decide, you can choose your journey. How we support large studios is by consistently staying on par with their ethics and their protocol and their procurement processes, but also being that infrastructure where they can hire, build, distribute, edit, anything they want to do in one platform. I'm sure you know this better than anyone, but when you probably had to hire like freelancers and like talent, it's just like you have to send it off to a billing department and then you have to get the quote from there. And oh God, it's just such a mess. So yeah, we really are thinking about frictionless filmmaking at every possible capacity, right? Like I said, it's not a small project. It's a massive project. We're building for the infrastructure of filmmaking to come. So yeah, I'm excited to be having this conversation because I feel like this is the first time that I'm like really publicly declaring it and hoping the right people come to us.
Again, and I mean, I knew a little, but I know a lot more now, and it's even more fantastic than my initial understanding. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
There's this talk in Hollywood about, is the first AI feature film going to be 100% AI, or is it going to be some type of hybrid model that incorporates, live action and real actors into the story? And, there's necessarily a battle, but there's, various ways and various levers to pull in terms of creating the best type of film, right? Yeah. And my concern has always been about the AI films that have been made they're all doomsday, they're robots, they're cyborgs, and they're fantastic, they're sci-fi. It's like, that's a great genre to show off the new technology, but where is Harrison Ford in the middle of the where where is dramatic performances by actors in all of that, and how do they get integrated? And so that's that will be an expectation of anybody going to the theaters when they see this first AI film that's in theaters. It's going to be judged against the theater that's in the next theater next door that's totally live action and has talent and all that stuff. And you can't live in a vacuum, because you're ultimately saying this is a film, not an AI film. It's a film.
It's a film.
Yeah, I used AI and partially whatever, to what proportion, but it's a film to be judged against the same films that are coming out that same weekend. Superman comes out today, and it's already, I think, going to make their numbers. So, what, with your platform, are you able to support the hybrid approach as well?
Yes, 100%. And that's actually where we're starting. I do see a world where films will be made 100% with AI. And I think there was a special on recently. Oprah Winfrey just had Sam Altman on one of her shows. And then she also had some influencers talking about where AI was a year ago in video generation, 1 year ago, 2024. And there's this video of The Rock. I think it's The Rock circulating of how bad this is an AI video, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
And then they played the same video 1 year later, and then you can't tell that it's AI. Like, it's so immaculate. So if we're there right now in a 5-second frame, I do think we're going to get to a place where, like I said earlier, the Nicole Kidmans of the world are going to come to cinema to own, replicate, build, and distribute and license their IP, their voice, their tonality, their facial expressions, their characteristics, their everything. And essentially sit back and watch a film being made with their IP, but earning the same amount of money. Less time on sets, same amount of money. So that's the world that I envision. I know that actors love to act, and that's not something we're trying to take away from them. But we want them to earn. And there's also this no secret in Hollywood that actors are not really getting paid what they should be getting paid, since their IP is really living in perpetuity. It's always going to be there forever and ever and ever. We've got actors who have done legacy TV and legacy film, and they can hardly make their rent or their mortgage. Like, that should not be happening. We have to bring back the glamour to filmmaking in a way that is admirable, that is aspirational, because I think the storytellers of our world is what helps people with depression, suicidal ideations, helps people in LGBT communities, people who are different, neurodivergent. And if we strip away the storytelling component from that, I think we've lost everything. Like,
Right.
I can't live in a world where there is no true storytelling. So yes, cinema will come in and able to model and replicate and do whatever they want to do. But at that point, the talent can decide how much of their body they want to use in terms of IP. Maybe they're not available for reshoots, right? They can say, yes, all right, I will license myself to you for my reshoot, which is a 2-week process. I can't be there. I've got another film. That's never been done before. So let's add that flexibility so they don't lose and that the studio timeline is able to keep going with their schedule. So that's kind of stuff that I'm excited about with cinema.
Well, and very worthwhile to be excited about, because you're challenging the norm, and the Hollywood system is broken, and we're seeing it be just self-destruct in front of our eyes. First with the streaming disruption, right?
Yeah.
Netflix and Amazon will be the winners there. And, every studio didn't need to build a streaming app. It was folly.
Yeah.
And so the whole notion of distribution and being the copycat of Netflix, well, you can't copycat Netflix. They spent years building a technology that works worldwide, right? And you just can't replicate it. So that was a mistake. But now, getting over these threats of AI, the studios are looking for ways to save money on production, right? They just look at it as a cost benefit analysis. And wow, we can make, film, preferably these kind of genre films like sci-fi and fantasy for, 30% of the cost. Fantastic. Let's do it. Right. So the only people making money in that scenario is the studios and, maybe the directors.
Yeah.
But left by the wayside are the entire visual effects community, let alone, many of the actors. So that's a path that's being aggressively taken. I was a little disheartened by the Lionsgate president, I think, talking about what they're doing with AI, because Lionsgate was a pioneer with James Cameron and Anthropic in making a deal. And my understanding of that early deal was that, okay, they're going to build an LLM based on all their films, whether it's John Wick or, all the other great movies that they have, including James Bond. Right?
Yeah, I remember that.
James Bond. Anyway, no, that's MGM now. Anyway, so, and then, have filmmakers come in, use that LLM to, make more affordable movie production. But what happened was they said, oh, no, just scan in John Wick, make it anime and make it PG rated instead of R. And they can pump out an animated John Wick in 3 hours.
Yeah.
It was like, womp, womp, womp.
That's a very, dare I say it, uneducated way to go about it. I feel like that is shiny object syndrome at its finest. It's like, oh, we want to be a part of this AI thing, that we're just going to do it like this. It's like, well, actually, hold on a minute. Because the thing is, are they using open source through Anthropic, right? They probably are. And so yeah, IP is everywhere. And if it's not open source and they've somehow closed it, that's great. But to spend that much money on a really bad idea,
Yeah.
quite frankly, is concerning to me. There are just better ways to do it and smarter people to help with that process. And I think if studios really get it right, and the way that they get this right is by partnering with really fantastic talent in this space, people who are innovating in this space, who have constantly got their eyes on like 10 years from now versus right now. I think, like I mentioned a few times already, people need to get out of this shiny object syndrome and realize that if we don't do something about the ethics of AI right now and the IP, we're going to see a mass exodus of talent owning their entire supply chain because they can't trust the studios or they can't trust their talent managers or anything like that. So that is the way, and the way to win people's hearts, I think, in this industry is to consistently put them first as the creators.
Hearts and minds, and reading those new contracts, because in those new contracts, they're definitely going to have clauses that say we have the right to like replicate you. And so before they sign those, there needs to be an alternative. And I believe it's going to be cinema in the world we're building.
That's sweet. Let's hope so. Yeah, I'm very excited about it. We've got a huge journey ahead of us. But the thing is, I have no business developing an entire operating tech stack, but I've been fully able to flesh out the whole prototype, right? So we're moving at lightning speed. We're staying super nimble. I think we've got 5 people total that we're still in the process of hiring 3 more, but we're not going to be a bloated company. We're also raising a fairly conservative amount. We're not going after, 30 million and all that stuff that I'm seeing. People raise like $6 million for like a tool in the AI era. And I'm like, why? So yeah, we are asking for a very conservative amount with a very lean but mean team. So I'm excited about the next chapter.
Okay. So as we get to our end here, is there a place where people can go to learn more about Sinima and hear about your journey and your product and your philosophy?
Yeah, absolutely. They can go to try.cinema.ai. And actually, I will drop in the link with you. Maybe you could pop it in the video in the comment section. I think that'll be better. But yeah, we have a waitlist generating, a couple of people on board already, people all over the world. I've gotten quite a bit of interest from Singapore, from South Africa, where I'm originally from. So yeah, excited to see the traction. And we welcome every single person in the film cinematic community. Even if you're a makeup artist or a set designer or a visual effects editor or an audio professional, I welcome you into this space, because this is where you're going to be able to earn a livelihood again, and not just earn, but potentially earn very well, because there's no cap, right? Like traditional sets and film sets, you're there the whole day. You've got a set budget, you negotiate your rates, and that's it. But this is recurring revenue while you're sleeping, built on your IP. And I think it's the future.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, listen, thank you so much, Lisa. We want to have you back as you make progress on your platform and your funding and, a launch date. We want to know it all. So we'll have you back. And so thanks to all of you for tuning in, and catch more of our RealmIQ sessions on your favorite podcast platforms. Please follow and smash that subscribe button. You can also follow us on TikTok, LinkedIn, and Blue Sky. Thanks a lot.
RealmIQ. Transform your business with AI-driven innovation.
Subscribe to our Media Slam newsletter and learn more about the intersection of design, content, and technology.
CurtDoty.co. Branding, marketing, and product development.